Discover the sinister rules my family followed in the cursed Appalachian Mountains for 200 years. Lily stood at the edge of Elder Hollow, the setting sun casting long shadows over the winding paths she once knew so well. Though the mountains wrapped the town in a comforting embrace, an unsettling chill pierced the air. Her heart raced as she caught sight of the familiar white picket fence of her grandmother's house, now standing alone like a tombstone against the deepening twilight. A funeral loomed ahead, but the funeral was only the beginning. As she stepped through the threshold, dust motes danced in the stagnant air, swirling around her like lost spirits. The musty scent of decay clawed at her throat. Grandma always said there were whispers in the walls of this house, secrets that should never breathe beyond their wooden confines. The heavy silence crept over her, each creak of the floorboards echoing like a sinister laugh. Before she could process the weight of her loss, a shiver of instinct shot through her. It started with the flicker of old memories trapped in faded photos and dusty trinkets. But then, her childhood dog, Max, who had always been waiting for her at the door, was nowhere to be found. A pang of panic twisted in her gut. Something was off. It was as if the house was alive, and it was hungry. Determined to uncover hidden stories, she climbed into the attic. Shadows clung to the corners, smothering her in their darkness. Then she spotted them worn-out journals stacked in a corner, begging for her attention. She opened one, and the brittle pages whispered tales lined with horror, curses that seemed to stutter through the generations. Rituals of blood used to quell unthinkable anguish, cast by the mountains that loomed like hungry giants over the town. Heartbeats quickened in her chest as she read on, learning her family's twisted legacy. "This can't be real," Lily murmured, her hands trembling. What kind of monsters were her kin? The ink spoke of vanished livestock, and children's eyes darkened by nightmares that clawed at their sanity. Each word felt like a shadow creeping closer, feeding off her terror. Her family had lived by rules forced through fear, rules she had not known but now felt shackled by. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Suddenly, a shadow darted outside the window, whipping her attention toward the darkening woods. Panic clawed at her throat while muted murmurs from the corners of the neighborhood seeped through the walls. She caught glimpses of neighbors glancing at her door, their smiles twisting into something more sinister. Lily's heart raced as she stumbled back, gasping, the journal falling from her grasp. Was it them? The Council of Elders? The very names that danced between hushed conversations, hidden agendas, and a web of secrets binding them to her family? That darkness, so palpable and close, began to suffocate her. Why did they watch? What had they seen? Fear pooled in the pit of her stomach like poison, a gnawing dread growing sharper as the oppressive cold curled around her. They said the cursed mountains held stories so ancient that souls had been bled dry. The very land hungered for blood. As she stood on the brink of revelation and despair, a bone-rattling scream echoed through the night. In that moment, the choice crystallized before her: slip into the violent whispers of her family's legacy or fight against the chilling darkness that threatened to consume her whole. As the call for blood echoed through the encroaching blackness, she realized running might not be an option. Would she escape the labyrinth of horror, or would she become yet another unwilling sacrifice to the mountain's insatiable hunger? The scream cut through everything, slicing through the layers of dust and memory like a knife. Lily's pulse quickened, her instincts screaming at her to flee, yet she was rooted to the spot. Shadows danced around her, blending with the echoes of despair that wrapped around the very heart of the house. "Max," she whispered, fear tight in her chest. Where was her beloved dog? The thought of him lost in the woods sent chills down her spine. The attic felt colder now, almost hostile, as if the wooden beams themselves bore witness to something unspeakable. As she cautiously descended the creaky stairs, every step felt like a step deeper into a nightmare. The door to the attic squealed shut behind her, leaving her with the thick silence that enveloped the rest of the house. She rushed to the front window and peered out into the dimming light. A full moon started to rise, and the world outside was draped in a cold, silver haze. Her neighbors were still out there, moving like wraiths through the shadows. No longer were they friendly faces, they stared at her with a look that chilled her to the bone. Was that pity she saw? Or was it something darker? A soft thud echoed from the back of the house, pulling her attention away from the window. She glanced towards the kitchen, heart thudding. The sound echoed again, more persistent this time, as if something was trying to break in. Feeling a surge of courage fueled by dread, Lily stepped into the kitchen, the air thick with an unsettling anticipation. She flicked on the light, flooding the room with bright illumination. Everything appeared normal, the old oak table, her grandmother's faded floral curtains fluttering from the open window. But the rumble of the wood stirred outside, a reminder that there was something lurking in the dark. Before she could process more, an image flashed in her mind, a fragmented memory of Grandma's warnings: never go into the woods at night, not after what happened. What had happened? Unearthed horrors flickered through her mind, leaving more questions than answers. Suddenly, the thudding came again, this time more aggressive. It was at the back door. What or who could it be? Who is there? She shouted, but all that answered was the low howl of the wind. She moved closer, compelled by some unseen force, her hand trembling as it reached for the doorknob. The door burst open, almost as if pulled by an unseen hand. Her heart slammed against her ribs as a figure emerged from the night, a wild-eyed neighbor, breathless and frantic. "Lily! You have to hide. They're coming for you. They know." He gasped, looking over his shoulder as if the darkness itself were pursuing him. "What? Who knows?" Her voice faltered. Dread twisted in her gut, hungry and relentless. "They know you're back. The council, the rules." His eyes darted around, wild and fearful. "They're coming for the last of them. The blood must be spilled." The weight of his words hung in the air, palpable, suffocating. Memories surged once more, the journals, the rituals, her bloodline's twisted history. Without waiting for more, he grabbed her arm. "We don't have time. We have to move." And then, just as quickly as he arrived, he vanished into the ink of night, leaving her mind reeling, her thoughts racing. What did he know? What did the council want with her? A terrible realization began to kindle within her. The very land beneath her feet could be alive, aware of her presence, its hunger unending. As the shadows began to swirl more tightly around her, she stepped back toward the light of the kitchen. But in that moment, the light flickered and went out. The hum of the night closed in, thick and suffocating, heart pounding. Lily whispered to the darkness, her breath hitched, "I want to be your sacrifice." But as the moon rose higher and the whispers of the mountain swelled, one question drowned out all others: how could she escape the grip of a legacy that had shackled her family for generations? Lily stood in the darkness, the world around her distorted by shadows that moved like restless spirits. The kitchen seemed to warp, the edges blurring, pulling her into an unseen abyss. The uncertainty clawed at her, and her heart raced with every thud that echoed in the silence. The air felt heavier, laden with secrets waiting to be uncovered. She fumbled for her phone, desperately trying to bring back the light. The screen glowed like a beacon, illuminating the fear etched on her face, but it felt like a flickering candle against the approaching storm. "Stay calm," she murmured to herself, though the tremor in her voice betrayed her fear. She needed to think. The man's warning echoed through her mind: "They're coming for the last of them." Did that mean her? Rushing to the door, she glanced outside, peering into the sprawling darkness where twisted trees stood sentinel, their gnarled branches like skeletal fingers. She squinted, searching for any sign of life, but the street was eerily vacant. Her breath caught as realization struck: she was alone, utterly isolated in this haunted land. Then she remembered her grandmother's journals. They were tucked away in the attic, filled with old tales and dark family secrets. Maybe they contained anything that could help her make sense of this horror. She felt a spark of determination ignite within her. She had to go back. Zipping through the echoing house, she sprinted up the stairs, the past biting at her heels. Hands shaking, she grabbed the first journal she found, opening it to a page that detailed an ancient ritual. Words and phrases jumped off the page: blood offerings, the council, and the gatekeeper. Fatigue slipped away as dread surged. Her family was part of something sinister, something vile. Not me, she whispered defiantly, almost as if daring the shadows to disagree. I want to be another name in their history. Suddenly, the creak of the floorboard sent her heart leaping into her throat. She turned sharply, but the darkness only returned her gaze, mocking her fear. A murmur rose from below, the sound of footsteps creeping closer. Awareness kicked her. There was no way to hide here. They were coming. With no time to second-guess herself, Lily grabbed the journal, shoving it under her arm, and raced towards the attic door. As she fumbled for the handle, the sounds grew louder, more insistent. They were close now. The thudding of her heart matched the heavy footsteps echoing through the house. Without looking back, she burst through the attic door, slamming it shut behind her. The air was stifling, the dust dancing in the single beam of moonlight that broke through the window. Wasting no time, she dashed to the corner where old trunks piled high threatened to topple at any moment. Desperately flipping through the pages, she searched for anything about escaping the council's grasp. Tears of frustration stung her eyes as the footsteps downstairs grew fainter. Had they found another way in? Or were they just playing with her, toying with the last remnants of her family's defiance? Then, a phrase caught her eye: escape the keeper, break the bond. The keeper? What was that? As the strange, guttural whispering throbbed through the house, calling to the legacy that sought her, something crumbled inside her. This was more than a family secret, it was a horrifying tether. With one last, frantic push, she mentally grasped for her resolve. She had to break free from this twisted legacy. But what if the truth meant facing a terror far worse than what she imagined? A shudder ran through her as the attic door rattled violently. These were no ordinary neighbors. The council had arrived. In that moment of peril, dread struck her with even greater clarity. What did the keeper want from her? The cries of the very house itself grew louder, walls vibrating with an almost sentient awareness. Lily gripped the journal tightly. Out there, the keeper was following the ancient rules, the very rules that bound her family. What had her grandmother sacrificed to keep them safe? And was she now the final offering? As the door creaked open slowly, darkness unlocked its maw, ready to swallow her whole. Lily took a breath, ready to confront whatever nightmares awaited her. But first, she had to decide, could she trust the secrets hidden within her own blood? The door creaked open a fraction, and the shadows surged like ravenous wolves, eager to consume her resolve. Lily froze, every instinct screaming at her to flee, but where could she go? The attic was a dead end. She could feel the air thickening around her, wrapping her in a suffocating grip that made every breath a battle. Just then, the whispering intensified, coiling around her like a serpent. "Lily, join us." The voice echoed, familiar yet unrecognizable, laced with a venomous sweetness that sent chills racing down her spine. She couldn't place it. Was it her grandmother's voice? No, it was something darker. Light flickered from her phone as she lifted it, illuminating the room in sharp flashes. Dust motes danced wildly, revealing cobwebs strung from eaves like the gruesome remnants of past lives. Her heart pounded louder, drowning out the whispers. Then, an idea struck like lightning. The journal. It could contain the means to escape. She flipped it open again, heart racing as her gaze skimmed hurriedly across the ink-stained pages. The keeper grants passage, but only through blood. Her stomach twisted. What did that mean? Behind her, the door hung slightly ajar, as if inviting her to step through the threshold into a world she desperately wanted to avoid. A blackened figure loomed beyond, too shapeless to discern, but undeniably present, pressing against the barrier of light. "Come to us, Lily," it rasped, voice a slicing whisper of eternity. The darkness held promises that twisted through her mind power, belonging yet they coiled like vines around a dead tree. Somehow, amidst its call, her grandmother's warning echoed louder, "Never forget the price of the bond." Desperately, she clawed through the pages, fingers shaking. "The bond, break the bond," she muttered under her breath, breathless. Then, a drawing caught her attention, mummified hands outstretched, a flower blooming at the center, an offering with a promise of freedom. But what would it require? "Join us." The voice surged, a tide of shadows rushing closer as if reacting to the words. Lily slammed the journal shut, eyes wide as fear gripped her gut. With a sudden burst of adrenaline, she lunged for the attic window, heart pounding like a war drum. She pried it open, the hinges protesting with a screech that seemed to awaken the night. The chill of the night air rushed to greet her face, and she hesitated for a mere moment. There was a dark simplicity in jumping the beckoning darkness below held another choice, as terrifying as the keeper. But as she looked back, the door swung fully open, and all shadows spilled forth, a tide of malevolence and hunger. "We only wish to help you," they murmured, slithering forward, voices a chorus from beyond the grave. Like a rubber band pulled taut, her decision snapped into focus. She couldn't let the darkness claim her. Without another thought, she hurled herself through the window, the world around her dissolving into chaos. The ground came rushing up, and she braced for impact. An explosion of pain shot through her body, jarring her back to consciousness with wild, jagged breaths. She was outside, sprawled in the damp grass around the corner of the house, a few feet from the tree line. But the whispered call was not far behind. Scrambling to her feet, the forest loomed ahead, wild and dark. She felt an unsettling pulse beneath her skin, roots intertwined with her very essence, pulling her back toward the house and the sinister legacy it harbored. Gasping, she grasped the journal tightly, the inked pages somehow heavier now. Were her choices leading her to safety, or deeper into her family's cursed history? A twig snapped behind her, the sounds of footsteps growing louder. Whatever lurked in the shadows was not finished with her yet. She had escaped the keeper, but now the council was in pursuit. Just how deep did these twisted ties run? Her heart pounded harder as she bolted into the trees. The darkness behind her closed in, a predator relentless in its chase. And with each hurried step, a chilling thought settled in her mind. Was there any escaping this haunting grasp, or was she fated to become the last offering, forever entangled in the web of her own bloodline? As the trees whispered her name among the rustling leaves, a new dread gripped her, the realization that she might not be the only one running tonight. Who else hid in the shadows, and what secrets did they guard? Heart racing, Lily pushed deeper into the forest, branches clawing at her skin like desperate fingers. The whispers chased her, curling through the air, rising and falling like a sinister melody. Join us, each step felt heavier as if the very ground sought to pull her down into the depths of the misery that lurked beneath. The journal throbbed in her grip, its weight a constant reminder of the dark pact she was tied to. Suddenly, the whispering paused, replaced by a low growl that vibrated in her bones. She stumbled, glancing back, expecting to see a shadowy figure emerging from the darkness. But nothing followed her. The silence felt more oppressive than the screams for help that had echoed moments before, as though the very trees held their breath, waiting for something to happen. Lily pressed on, her mind racing with images of what waited behind her. What did they want? The council or the keeper? It all tangled in her thoughts, a maddening mess of dread and desperation. Then she spotted a flicker of light ahead. A cabin stood nestled against the trees, weary but intact, like a tired watcher spying on her flight. Hope surged, but it was fragile, like a spider's silk, easily torn by the wind. She hesitated, torn between instinct and desperation. Inside, there might be refuge or something far worse. Faint laughter echoed from the cabin. Faceless voices carried lines of undisguised malice, mingled with derision. Instinct screamed danger, but she couldn't afford to ignore her aching body. out of breath and on the brink of collapse, Lily crept toward the door, each step deliberate, each sound amplified. The laughter continued, mingling with the crackle of a fire as she reached for the door handle, fingers trembling as the cold metal bit into her skin. She hesitated, visions of shadows rushing in from the woods flooding her mind. "Help!" she called out, her voice quavering. Immediately, the laughter ceased, replaced by a chilling silence. "Yes, help," a voice replied, silky smooth and dangerously welcoming. It was a voice wrapped in sweetness, dragging her back to all that was distorted and twisted in her bloodline. "Come, dear Lily. We've been waiting for you." Her heart sank. They were here, waiting for her, just as they always had been. She turned back towards the forest, the darkness swarming angrily as shadows whipped at her heels. She gasped. The twisted faces of her ancestors emerged from the periphery, eyes glinting in the dim light. "They will take you home," the voice murmured from inside the cabin. "You need not struggle. We're all here for you. Your place, your purpose." For a moment, everything grew still, the laughter, the shadows, even the wind. It was as if time had paused, allowing her to grasp what it all meant. The council was real, they had been lingering all along, holding back their secrets with bated breath. As fear coursed through her, she realized she was nothing more than a tool, a pawn in their ritual game. "Lily." The voice surged, thick with pleading and desperation. "You belong with us. You always have." She gripped the journal, desperate to decipher its cryptic messages. If it held the key to her salvation, why did it feel like a noose tightening around her neck? Shadows shifted closer, the air saturated with whispers promising acceptance. Before her, the cabin stood tall, a dark sentinel trapping her in uncertainty. She could either step inside and embrace whatever awaited her or plunge back into the suffocating dark she had narrowly escaped. Knowing she had no more time, she took a deep breath, heart pounding against her ribs, and swung the door open. Lights blazed inside, illuminating a gathering of figures draped in shadows, all eyes fixed on her with an unsettling hunger. A shiver rippled through her, they were there to welcome her or to claim her. Could she find a way to break the cycle of fear? Or had she made a choice that sealed her fate? And just as despair threatened to pull her under, a chilling truth settled deep in her bones: she was not as alone as she thought. Someone else hid in the shadows, someone who had not yet revealed themselves, but the lurking presence was growing more potent by the moment. What truths were they hiding, and what role would she play in this dark homecoming? The door creaked open, the sound sharp against the silence. Lily stepped over the threshold, her body trembling with dread. The warmth of the cabin collided with the chill of the forest, wrapping around her like an unwelcome embrace. The flickering light cast eerie shadows on the walls, shadows that danced with life, mocking her fear. The figures shifted, closing in slightly, their features obscured by darkness yet pulsating with a strange familiarity. Her heart raced as she scanned their faces, hauntingly similar to her own. It was as if her ancestors had risen straight from the ground, eyes glowing with an unsettling mix of longing and hunger. "Welcome, Lily," the voice beckoned again, and she recognized it as the one that had called her from the shadows. "We've missed you dearly." Why me?" She forced the words out, her throat dry and constricted. Adrenaline surged, clashing with the urge to turn and run. "Because you are one of us," a man stepped forward, his features both handsome and cruel. He smiled, revealing teeth too sharp, too white. "You carry their blood, our blood. You have the strength to join our circle." The cabin creaked around her, the floorboards groaning as if resonating with the tension that hung thick in the air. Lily's gaze darted to the journal still clutched tightly in her hands. Was it the source of her connection to these ghastly roots, or was it simply a trap? Every heartbeat echoed in her ears. "What do you want from me?" she whispered, terror constricting her chest like a vice. "To fulfill a purpose greater than your own." The voice was enticing, wrapping around her like smoke, intoxicating and suffocating. "Join us, and together we can reclaim what was lost. Each generation has sacrificed for your return. It is time for you to reaffirm your loyalty to us. The last word hung heavy in the air, pulsating like a living thing. Lily's instincts screamed at her, warning her of the impending danger. But a part of her curiosity, whispered secrets, perhaps even belonging, urged her to stay. The figures shifted, revealing more of their forms. They wore clothes reminiscent of past eras, tattered yet regal. Each carried a token of the old ways, a charm, a bundle of herbs, something that linked them to a world long forgotten. The smell of earth and decay filled her nostrils, mixing with the igniting fire. As fear swelled, her eyes fell onto an intricate symbol carved into the wooden wall of the cabin. It looked like the one from the journal, but twisted, elongated, the true mark of the council. Memories flickered in her mind, fragments of stories her grandmother warned her not to explore. The price of loyalty always steep. Why should I trust you? She spat back, anger surging through her. You're not my family. You're monsters. In that moment, the atmosphere shifted sharply, a collective intake of breath from the congregation. The temperature dropped. You were always destined for this. Rejecting it is futile, the man replied, his smile fading. Allow us to show you. Before she could react, shadows from the corners surged forth, curling around her ankles, whispering secrets of the past. Cold enveloped her entire being, but amidst the chaos, the other presence she felt earlier flickered into focus. A figure staggered from the back of the room, stepping out of the shadowy depths. There was something familiar in the stance, something heartbreakingly protected. Don't listen to them, Lily. A voice cried out. It was a woman, her face pale, eyes wide with fear, yet fierce with defiance. They want to take you away, just like they did to me. Lily froze. Recognition washed over her like a wave crashing against jagged rocks. It was her mother, or someone who looked just like her, captured in a spectral moment of time. Run! The woman implored. You have to get away from here. They won't let you leave. The laughter erupted, filling the space with an unsettling cacophony, dismissing the mother's warning. Fear surged within Lily as the shadows encroached, ready to sweep her into the dark. Was she about to fulfill a grim family legacy, or could she break free from the legacy of terror? With the stakes bolted to her very soul, each option daunting, she lingered in the threshold of choice. And as her heart raced one final time, she felt the energy shift, the room holding its breath. What would she choose? Would she follow blood, or would she forge her own path? With desperation clawing at her, the next moment could determine her fate or end it forever. The shadows tightened around Lily, wrapping her in a cold embrace that felt suffocating. Her heart thudded painfully against her ribcage, drowning out the laughter that echoed around her. The warning from her mother sliced through the chaos like a desperate lifeline. Run! The urgency in her mother's voice shook her from the paralyzing grip of fear. But where could she go? Everywhere she turned, the figures moved closer, their grinning faces blurring into one another until they merged into an unrecognizable mass. Don't let the phantoms manipulate you, Lily. Her mother shouted, as if sensing the weight of doubt creeping into her mind. With a sudden surge of determination, Lily took a step back, feeling the course wall behind her. Her breath quickened as she recalled the journal, the family histories locked within its pages. It was supposed to help her understand her lineage, not bind her to it. What's the price of loyalty? She shouted, forcing the words out as she felt the shadows inching upwards, intertwined around her legs like snake-like tendrils. What did it cost you? Silence fell, a heavy blanket suffocating the laughter. A shimmer of recognition flashed in the eyes of the glowing faces. It demands everything, the cruel man answered, his voice now steady and calm. Your will, your essence, your very soul. Stop! She screamed, the echoes of her voice spiraling out into the void. Deep within her, a fire ignited, the knowledge that she could choose to fight. In a blur of motion, she lunged to the side, her body sliding past the encroaching figures. Desperate instinct propelled her toward the journal, dropped on a nearby table, the pages fluttering restlessly as if beckoning for her touch. With trembling hands, she seized it, clenching it against her chest. The shadowy forms hesitated, fear flashing across their once familiar faces. "We can protect you, Lily," they hissed, their voices entwined. "You belong with us." "No. You're not my family," she shouted, gripping the journal tighter. The old wood felt warm through her skin, the weight of generations coursing through her veins. "I choose my own path." The air around her thickened, pulsating as if the cabin itself were alive, absorbing her declaration. The shadows recoiled, releasing her just enough to allow a sliver of light to break through the encroaching dark. In that fragile moment, she turned towards the door. The outside world beckoned, the forest whispering promises of freedom. Yet, she hesitated. The figure of her mother lingered, caught between two worlds. "Lily, please don't let them win. Fight." Lily's eyes locked onto her mother's, and the truth struck her like a bolt of lightning. Her fight was not just for herself, but for every soul that had been taken before her. Each heartbeat was a drum, a call to arms. She dashed toward her mother, seeking to bridge the gap between the past and the present. The shadows shrieked, a cacophony of fury and betrayal, but she pressed on, determination surging through her bones. "I won't let you take her again." The wood beneath her feet shuddered as she reached for her mother's fading silhouette. Would she grasp the warmth of kinship, or dissolve under the shadow's weight? The world spun as if time itself were unspooling. Straining to touch her mother, facing both the legacy she carried and the choice to deny it, Lily felt a pulse that vibrated through the very air she breathed, and then the shadows lunged, twisted hands grasping at her, as she teetered on the brink. Would she pierce through the darkness and weave herself into the light, or would the council's grasp pull her back into its eternal night, with the haunting laughter echoing behind her and the light ahead? Every moment hung suspended. Choices were born from what lay beyond. In that single, lingering heartbeat, Lily stood between two worlds. What would she choose? Lily felt her body pulled in two directions, each instant stretching into eternity. The shadowy tendrils whipped around her, almost whispering secrets of her family's dark past. They coiled tighter, their cold touch a cruel reminder of the legacy she fought against. "Lily!" Her mother called, but the voice echoed as if it were coming from a great distance. There was a pleading quality to it now, a fragility that made Lily's heart ache. Just a few more steps, she thought, desperate to bridge the narrowing gap between them, but the room shifted, distorting just like her memories. The shadows thickened, wrapping her in a suffocating embrace, as the laughter returned louder, more sinister. "You cannot escape, dear heart," the cruel man taunted, stepping forwards, his grin widening, revealing teeth serrated like glass shards. "You will join us, and we shall guide you into bliss." Lily's breath came in rattled gasps. She clutched the journal like a lifeline, feeling its warm energy pulsate against her chest. The weight of generations was embedded in its pages. She had to read it. Part of her craved the answers, but dread rooted her to the spot. What truths would it reveal? Would it chain her further, or could it be the key to her freedom? "Fight!" Her mother's voice surged again, fiercer now, shattering the suffocating fog wrapping around Lily's mind. "Choose the light." Gritting her teeth, Lily summoned every ounce of courage. She opened the journal, and the pages fluttered wildly, chaotic and alive. Ancient writing surged from the pages, twisting and spinning. Names she recognized, ancestors whose spirits lingered, forgotten but not entirely lost. "Stop!" she screamed, as swirling darkness began to consume the words, blurring reality. The figures grew closer, eyes glinting with malicious intent, shimmering with the hunger of the forsaken. "Fill your cup," they chanted, circling her like predators. "Embrace the sins of your kin." In that moment, something shifted in her. The room dimmed, and the laughter morphed into a single, chilling harmony, a siren song woven through the fabric of her very being. Her mind flickered through memories of gatherings, laughter, communion. All marred by shadows, all lost. Her hand shook as she touched the writing, each letter ignited flashes of clarity, revealing her family's sinister rituals, blood pacts to bind souls, sacrifices for power, a cycle of endless torment. The price of loyalty twisted her stomach into knots. Images flooded her mind, intertwining with echoes of her ancestors pleading, crying out for liberation. "You don't have to do this," they implored through the shadows, their faces morphing into grotesque masks of despair and hope. "I'm done with your games," Lily shouted, forcing her voice through the tumult. The shadows recoiled, screeches erupting as if her defiance stung. "I choose my own legacy." A crack split the air as energy radiated from her, light surged inside her, unchained and unyielding. The shadows shrieked, retreating against the surge like a tide drawn back. Yet, as they receded, the air became colder, the oppressive weight grew heavier. Was it truly over? Could she break the chains once and for all? "Lily." Her mother's voice reached out, woven with desperate urgency. "Now. Close the journal." With a blind rush of desperate intuition, she slammed the cover shut. The shadows howled in rage, their forms twisting and curling like smoke. They writhed against the glowing light coming from the journal, fighting against it, yet the light surged, burning them away like moths to a flame, but even as they dissipated, an unsettling silence filled the room, amplifying the dread that hung thick in the air. Something was still there. A lingering presence, tenebrous and insistent. Her heart raced as she turned, moving in tandem with the sound of a slow creak. There, in the corner, a new shadow loomed, a tall figure with an outline too familiar to ignore, a silhouette drenched in malice. And all of a sudden, the laughter returned. But this time, it was not hollow, it was laced with a dark promise. Time felt suspended. Had she truly escaped, or merely traded one nightmare for another? Within the growing darkness, question marks loomed. What awaited her now? The figure in the corner shifted, its form flickering like dying light. Familiar yet grotesque, it dripped with shadows that curled like smoke. Lily's breath hitched in her throat. "No, it can't be Lily," it called, voice so sweet and yet so chilling, echoing the warmth of her childhood. "You've done well to defy them. Yet your fight has just begun." Her heart raced, a drum pounding against the walls of her chest. She took a cautious step back, trying to escape the resonance of that voice. It belonged to her father, a man who had been absent from her life, swallowed by the very shadows she now faced. His silhouette shimmered with an eerie glow, but his eyes held a darkness that made the hair on her arms stand on end. "Why, Dad? Why did you leave? What were you a part of?" She managed to ask, only just managing to keep her voice steady. A twisted smile broke across his face, and for a fleeting moment, she could see the man she loved before the darkness took him, before everything had changed. "I never left, my dear. I was working to protect you, as all our kin have done for generations. But you must understand, the cycle is not broken. It has merely been delayed." The laughter swirled around them again, layering the air with a chilling fear that made her skin crawl. Lily clutched the journal to her chest as if it were a shield. There was power in it, and she needed to harness that power. Couldn't back down now. "What cycle?" she demanded, frustration boiling inside her. "Were you protecting me or sacrificing me?" "A little of both," he grinned, and it was a smile laced with malice. "You are part of something greater, Lily. A lineage that connects us all in ways you cannot even begin to comprehend." Dark shapes writhed beyond her father, growing thicker, more menacing. They buzzed with energy, drawn to the warmth of her spirit. The room trembled, shadows quaking at the edge of her vision, pushing closer, colorful whispers of terror promising her eternity in their fold. "Join us, dear heart," they beckoned in unison, their voices dripping with deceit. "Embrace the darkness that is your birthright." But she fought too damn hard to give in now. Clenching her fists, she remembered her mother's words, "Choose the light." "Enough!" Lily shouted, and with a surge of adrenaline, she opened the journal once more. The pages whipped around like a tempest, words exploding into life at her command. Light burst forth, lancing through the blackness like a beacon piercing a starless night. The shadows recoiled, hissing with rage and pain. She could feel their fury, a palpable wave crashing against her resolve. The figure of her father faltered, the flicker of his edge sharpening and blurring. "Lily! You, shut up!" she screamed. "I'm no longer your pawn." The energy from the journal swelled, illuminating the room like a second sun. The shadows screeched, retreating farther into the corners. But as they receded, her heart plummeted. "Our ancestors will never let you go," her father rasped, and his shape began to thin, fading into the darkness. "You think you've won? This is just the beginning. They will come for you." Then he was gone. The room fell silent, the oppressive air lifting slightly, but it wasn't relief. The shadows had pulled back, but they lingered just beyond the edges of her vision, a promise of revenge still clinging to the dust motes swirling in the dim light. Lily staggered back against the wall, hands trembling at her sides. The journal pulsed gently in her grip, almost whispering, begging her to understand. "What have I unleashed?" she whispered to herself, and with that haunting question hung in the air, a low, rhythmic thrum echoed from the depths of the journal, a call. A darkness swirling on the verge of breaking through again. What price would she have to pay now for her determination to break free? As the shadows thickened once more, the laughter transformed into a low, rumbling chant that filled the cavernous space. "Welcome back, Lily. The family reunion is just beginning." She clenched her teeth, readying herself for whatever would come next. But could she stand against not just the shadows, but her very own blood? The answer danced tantalizingly in the darkness, waiting to be revealed. Lily's breath came in ragged gasps, the weight of the journal heavy against her heart. She had faced the storm only to find the eye-hiding horrors still lurking. The laughter faded to a louder, more oppressive growl, rolling through the room like an impending wave. Shadows writhed at the edge of her vision, closing in like a thick fog of despair. Each figure pulsed with inherited darkness, ancestors beckoning with twisted smiles. But the fear was no longer paralyzing, it ignited something inside her, a defiance that boiled deep within her core. Her mother's voice echoed louder in her mind, urging her on. The way forward was lit by determination, the will to reclaim her legacy. "Enough of this," she shouted, louder than she ever thought she could, clenching the journal like a torch. "I refuse to accept your fate for me." The words quaked through the room, rupturing the sinister chant. For a moment, silence fell, the shadows recoiling as if stung. Their laughter hesitated, then snapped back like a whip. "Foolish girl." The cruel man's voice sliced through the tension, as if making a pact with the impending storm. "You think your resistance matters against the tide of darkness? This legacy is stronger than you." Fueled by the weight of generations behind her, Lily clutched the journal closer, its warmth radiating like sunlight. In the face of that chilling shadow, she took a step forward, surprising herself with the strength of her resolve. "You are wrong," she declared, voice steady. "I carry the stories of our people, and I will not become another offering in your twisted ritual." With that declaration, she swung the journal wide, the pages dancing in the flickering light. Words leapt off the page, spinning into a brilliant cocoon of light that wrapped around her like a second skin. "No." The angry cries of her ancestors twisted into agonized wails, their forms shifting and distorting, blurring in an incandescent glow. The force of them swept through her, a tumult of energy that felt like a flood bursting through a dam. It flowed into her veins, mingling with her own blood, the darkness intermingling with fierce light, a battle for her very soul. "Lily, don't fight it." Her father's voice mixed into the chaos, a heart-wrenching plea for surrender, but the whispers of generations thrummed at her core, stitching together a new truth she would not follow blindly. "I want to let you take me," she shouted, channeling the energy flowing through her. With one fierce thrust, Lily directed the light outward, manifesting a shield against the encroaching shadows. A blinding flash erupted, scattering the dark figures, their expressions morphing to grotesque horror. The laughter turned to screams, a cacophony of angry shadows desperately flailing against the force radiating from her very being. I am breaking this cycle, she roared, voice rising with power. I am more than you. I reclaim my family heritage, my right to choose. The words escaped her, spilling from her lips as vibrations shook the very ground beneath her. With that empowering declaration, the light surged brighter, illuminating the room in dazzling glory. The shadows screeched, swirling against the powerful radiance, twisting and blending into a spiraling storm. The laughter reduced to panicked cries as the light engulfed them entirely. Lily felt a surge of warmth envelop her, a caress that felt almost maternal. Whatever the shadows were fading into, they took with them the last remnants of her family's curse. This ends now, she cried decisively, slamming the journal closed once more. An explosion of light filled the cabin as the air crackled and snapped. Then silence descended. She stood alone, breathing heavily, flooding with adrenaline. The room around her transformed, no longer a crypt, but a sanctuary pulsing with the vibrant energy of freedom. A flicker of movement caught her eye. Across the room, her mother's figure materialized. You did it, Lily, she whispered, the shadows receding fully to reveal the sturdy walls of the cabin, now bathed in soft light. You broke the hold of our family. But Lily trailed off, the ghosts of doubt raising their heads. What happens now? Now you can choose the path forward, her mother said, a serene smile spreading across her face. You can write your own story. The legacy you create doesn't have to be chained to the past. As Lily gazed at the journal on the table, a choice blossomed inside her. It would hold the weight of knowledge, but it could also be a vessel for hope. She didn't have to forget, but she could evolve beyond the shackles of fear. Together, we can lift this burden, Lily said, determination filling her voice. Her mother nodded, and the room pulsed with promise, ready to embrace a new narrative. Thank you, Lily whispered, as the last tendrils of darkness abated, melding back into the fabric of time where it belonged. And with the glow of dawn breaking through the windows, she turned her back to the shadows, ready to forge a new legacy, one filled with hope, light, and unyielding power. Now, dear viewers, this is where you come in. You need to subscribe right now, so you don't miss our next exclusive story straight from the heart of these mountains. Smash that like button now to fuel the algorithm fire. And I'm counting on you to flood the comments section with your jaw-dropping reactions and wild theories about Lily's journey. Don't wait even one more second. Share this video with at least 5 friends who absolutely need to hear this conclusion. Let us unravel more tales together, because in this community, every story matters.